scandal in the history of the NHS, and today the Prime Minister tried to use words and cash to provide some closure for the victims. He apologised in the Commons and offered £25 million to help those infected with HIV and hepatitis C after receiving contaminated blood supplies in the 70s and 80s from the NHS. But there was anger in Edinburgh, where some victims called the inquiry a whitewash after it ruled that once the risk emerged, everything was done that reasonably could have been done. Victoria MacDonald is in Edinburgh.
We're doing this because of the money that's been wasted.
6 long years in the making, and in just a few minutes it had all gone up in flames. This was the Penrose Inquiry Report into how thousands of people in Scotland became infected with HIV and hepatitis C from contaminated blood.
Not good enough. Absolutely not good enough.
Will you carry on campaigning, or do you think you don't have any faith in it?
We absolutely will carry on. I think this has made us more angry than ever.
Expectations had been high as people arrived at the National Museum of Scotland this morning. This was the culmination of years of campaigning for the truth to be told about what has been described as the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS. Lord Penrose himself was absent, seriously ill in hospital, so his statement was read out by the inquiry clerk. But within minutes of her finishing, there were shouts of anger because of the key conclusion that there was little that could or should have been done differently to prevent the infection.
And the outcome is absolutely diabolical, and it's gone on for 3 decades. This has gone on for 30 years, and there's still no justice at the end of it.
Those infected and those affected had travelled from across the UK because while this was a Scottish inquiry, the scandal had happened before the health service was devolved. 7,000 people, many with haemophilia, are thought to have been infected in the 70s and 80s, and 2,000 have died. The blood had come from America, donated by drug users or sex workers. In Scotland, they took it from prisoners. The report says in hindsight that was inadvisable.
So, 1,800 pages. Goodness knows how much this actually weighs. It cost £12 million for the entire inquiry, and yet within here there is only one recommendation.
And that recommendation was that anyone who had a blood transfusion in Scotland before September 1991 should be offered a hepatitis C test. You're really angry, aren't you?
You can tell. I am very, very angry. I feel let down again by a man and an inquiry team that could have done so much good for so many people and so many lives out there.
We've been doing it so long, we've lost so many people along the way. More people are dying all the time. You know, there are people in there whose husbands have less than 2 months to live. It's horrifying, and they just wanted something out of today to give them hope.
There were apologies, though, from both the Scottish and the UK governments, and that had been one of the demands from the campaigners.
It's absolutely right to raise this. It is difficult to imagine the feelings of unfairness that people must feel at being infected with something like hepatitis C or HIV as a result of a totally unrelated treatment within the NHS. And to each and every one of those people, I would like to say sorry on behalf of the government for something that should not have happened.
The Prime Minister also announced an interim fund of £25 million.
To a better payment.
Not enough, said Haemophilia Scotland, but they do believe the report will help them fight for a better deal.
It's actually what now happens next. Yes, there are some people who want to hold individuals to account quite properly in terms of being in Scotland, getting away scot-free. But what matters now is that government and its civil servants go away and look at that body of evidence.
There were some there today, though, who will take little consolation from that. Instead, their fear was that after decades, they still have not won their fight.